Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace and beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. May the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Well, good afternoon on this Saturday afternoon, and welcome to our reading and discussion of Swami Prabhavananda's translation and commentary on the translation of and commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which he published under the title How to Know God, which is a very instructive title because that is what Patanjali's sutras are. They are a workbook on how to know God. So before we begin our discussion, reading and discussion of today's text, is there anything left over from last week that should be brought up and talked about? Anything from your own wisdom or experience, or anything that is just on your mind about this whole topic? All right. Patanjali can help the sin-obsessed Christian, and I'll just interpolate the sin-obsessed any person, Christian or not. People sometimes get possessed, obsessed by the idea that they are too much of a sinner to study spirituality. Patanjali can help the sin-obsessed Christian, for his word obstacle is a good, accurate, unsentimental word, which immediately suggests a course of positive action. You don't lie down under obstacles and pity yourself. You go to work and remove them, remove the obstacles. The use of the word sin is also misleading for another reason. Sin is only one half of a concept. It has to be completed by punishment. This is unfortunate because in the relative world, many sins appear to go unpunished. And if I've heard this once, I've heard it 20 times over the time that I've been here, talking with devotees. Well, people seem to live in this very desire and attachment obsessed way. They go about their lives and nothing seems to happen to them. Their karma doesn't seem to visit them. Let's hear what the Swami says. Many sins appear to go unpunished. Hence arises the deadly fallacy that God may perhaps be tricked, that one may be able now and then to get away with murder. The literature of Christianity is loud. The literature of Christianity is loud with complaints that the unrighteous are flourishing like the green bay tree, and that nothing is being done about it. Nothing is being done about it. And so people resort to superstitious fallacies that superstitious fancies. So people resort to superstitious fancies that earthquakes and floods and famines are God's deliberate punishment for collective acts of sin. Divine justice comes to be represented as an incalculable, spasmodic, hit or miss affair, which is indeed utterly unjust. The use of the word obstacle does away with such misconceptions in a moment. It clears up any possible confusion of spiritual punishment. It clears up any possible confusion of spiritual punishment with the punishments inflicted by nature or by man. This is why we chant Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. The first Shanti is for peace or beneficence regarding the things that we inflict on ourselves. The second Shanti is to ask for beneficence regarding the pain that is inflicted on us by other human beings. The third Shanti is to ask for beneficence in the face of natural disasters, those things that are visited on us by nature. So Shanti, Shanti, Shanti covers the territory, so to speak. So this is regarding, so I'll go back. The obstacle clears up any possible confusion of spiritual punishment with the punishments inflicted by nature or by man. If you commit a murder, you will probably, but not certainly, be arrested. If you build your city on an earthquake fault, or neglect your dams or your agriculture, you will probably, but not certainly, be visited with earthquakes, floods, or famines. That has nothing whatsoever to do with the spiritual consequences of sin. Sin has only one spiritual consequence, and and this is invariable and inescapable. It creates an obstacle to enlightenment, great or small, according to its magnitude, and the obstacle is its own automatic, self-contained punishment, alienation from the Atman, identification with the ego, and resultant suffering. That certainly bears repeating, don't you think? That has nothing whatsoever to do with the spiritual consequences of sin, these things inflicted by man or nature. That has nothing to do with the spiritual consequences of sin, spiritual consequences of sin. Sin has only one spiritual consequence, and this is invariable and inescapable. It creates an obstacle to enlightenment, great or small, according to its magnitude, and this obstacle is its own automatic, self-contained punishment, alienation from the Atman, identification with the ego, and resultant suffering. So, is there any comment or question about what the Swami has been saying about the nature of suffering, the suffering that comes from other human beings or nature, and how we may bring that on ourselves, or the spiritual consequences of sin, that is to say, missing the mark in a great or small way, and therefore increasing our entrapment with our small self and our alienation from our true original nature and being, the Atman. Anything at all from anyone?
I think one of the worst punishments that humans mete out for sin is self-loathing.
Mm-hmm.
And self-loathing is all about the ego, because it's not about loathing the Atman, the big self.
No.
It's about focusing on the little self instead of the big self.
Yes. And this was a major, major problem in uh, the so-called Dark Ages and up through the 13th and 14th and 15th centuries in the Catholic Church. And it was the monastics, and therefore they shared this, of course, with their congregations, this self-loathing. There was, and what it was just devastating. And what it led to in the Catholic Church, the Reformation in the Catholic Church, led to scholasticism, where they took refuge in study of the scriptures and the great teachings of the Greeks and so on, Aristotle and so on. So this you're absolutely right, Cindy. This self-loathing is in itself a huge obstacle because it focuses on the ego and on the small self and the self hating itself. How tragic. Anything else from anyone on that or anything else?
Yes, Brother Shankara, I have something about ego versus soul. Somebody sends me something. I just want to read a couple of lines, only a couple of lines.
Okay.
It says, ego seeks to serve itself. Soul seeks to serve others. Ego seeks outward recognition. Soul seeks inner authenticity.
Inner
authenticity.
Authenticity, yes.
Yes, and ego rejects God. Soul embraces God. That's what it said. It's only a few words from that.
What is the last? Ego does what with God?
Ego is me, soul is we. Oh, ego rejects God, soul embraces God.
Ah, yes, right.
And last it said, ego is me, soul is we.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's why the resultant is suffering. We suffer because it's only we're serving ourselves with the ego, not
when we
other people.
When we begin to lose our identification, when our identification with this small self becomes shaken by some experience, and it is inevitably some experience, whether small or large, when our identification with that small self in its entirety becomes shaken, this is when we begin to find reverence. We begin to find reason to look to something greater than ourselves. And when we truly become reverent, then we can abandon selfishness and begin to devote ourselves to others, be selfless. And this is the major step in spiritual development, and it is exactly what Patanjali talks about in the yamas and the niyamas. The yamas are the restraints on the small self. The observances are the beginning of study and observance and cultivation of that inner awareness, that inner self, that discovery of our true nature within. So beautifully said and beautifully put by whoever wrote that. Haima, thank you for contributing it.
Thank you, Brother.
Anything else from anyone?
Shankaraji, I think
Yes, Balaji.
it's a very powerful teaching here, especially because unless we are very closely follow and we are earnest in all our efforts, we always miss, because this doesn't tell us we are alienating the Atman. And so it is such a subtle thing. Unless you specially pay attention to it, it's very easy to miss.
Yes, and miss the mark is
Yes.
really the meaning of the word sin. To miss the mark, to miss what you're aiming for, is really the meaning of the word sin. And so this is, sin is such a freighted word because it's full of that, as Cindy pointed out, it's full of that self-loathing idea. So it's who is that? Oh, Cindy, you got a Halloween image up, don't you? Yeah, the
I
full.
do. It's a full moon and a black cat out on a. It's Sita out on a branch in front of it.
Full moon, yes. The little black cat. Oh, how beautiful it is. So, anything else before we read on? So this alienation from our true self is the greatest punishment that can be inflicted. Nothing compares with the ache, the pain that comes from that total alienation. So the Swami says this punishment may not be apparent to us at the moment when we incur it. This punishment may not be apparent to us at the moment when we incur it. We've looked away from that which will understand what we're doing. But we cannot by any means escape its effects. We may be looking away toward that which causes us to lose our concentration and miss the mark, but we will no way escape the final effect of that alienation. And oh, that is the pain. If you indulge your thoughts, if you judge your thoughts and actions, if you judge your thoughts and actions from Patanjali's viewpoint, asking yourself, does this add to or diminish the obstacles to my enlightenment? Patanjali, does this add to or diminish the obstacles to my enlightenment? And a simpler phrase has been contrived that arose here to say this same idea. From this perspective of spiritual growth and spiritual attainment, does this thought, this action, this speech, does what I'm thinking, saying, or doing, does it deserve my attention? And it deserves your attention if it adds to your possibility for growth. It does not deserve your attention if it doesn't. And of course, this does not apply to our worldly duties. Our worldly duties are necessary. It's what's necessary for us to keep the wolf from the door and to maintain our mastery over the game of life. It has nothing to do. Those things are simply the necessaries for our embodiment. Any comments or questions from anyone? Okay.
This is the same thing Vivekananda says. We have to ask that question, is this leading towards my goal or is it taking away from my goal?
Exactly. It's exactly the same question. It's exactly the same question. And if it doesn't lead to your goal, then what is it? If it leads toward your goal, you know what it is. Or you may have some beginning of idea what it is. It unfolds for you more and more as you go on. Thank you, Bala. Anything else? Okay. Does this add to or diminish the obstacles to my enlightenment? You will avoid the error of imagining that sins are definite acts of absolutely fixed value, which can be classified, graded, and listed. They are not. What is wrong for one person may be right for another, as the Gita teaches us. Each of us has his own sins and his own virtues relative to his duties, responsibilities, and present spiritual condition. And this is so important for us to understand when we deal with other human beings as well as ourselves. We were just told why it's impossible to judge anyone else. We simply don't know these things about them. Even if we know them well, we don't fully know these things about them. So we can't judge their actions. We may think, oh, well, I would never do that. Well, so what? It doesn't matter a whit whether you would or wouldn't, given your situation. We must not judge others. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Not by some outside God the Father sitting on a golden throne, hurling lightning bolts at you. No, you will be judged by the effects of your actions. If you judge others, judgment will be visited on you by others. It's just as inevitable as the earth spinning on its axis and the sun seeming to rise and the sun seeming to set. All we can do is to search our own consciences and try to relate our motives to our motives on any particular occasion to the great central motive of our lives, which is God realization. Extremely difficult problems in conduct are sure to arise. We shall make many mistakes. We shall make many mistakes. Vivekananda himself, at the end of his life, wrote in letters to his dear friend Josephine MacLeod, Tontine, and his friend Frank Leggett, Frankincense, he said, I have made many mistakes. I celebrate them all because they made me who I am today. We shall make many mistakes, and the best we can hope for at that is that our overall intention may be in the right direction. This, by the way, was what the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was accused of many things. And his response, Jerry Brunner used to be a teacher for the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He knew him. And the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, when faced with people's accusations, would say, my intentions are correct and my heart is pure. That's all we can hope for, that our intentions may be in the right direction and that our heart is pure. Patanjali teaches us to regard ourselves with a certain scientific detachment, which avoids the two extremes of lazy tolerance and futile disgust. This scientific detachment. Patanjali is himself a scientist. This is what Vivekananda points out in some detail in his opening to his discussion of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Raja Yoga. He says, Patanjali is a scientist. And so he encourages us to this scientific detachment, which avoids the two extremes of lazy tolerance and futile disgust. The surgeon does not tolerate a cancer. He cuts it out, but he does not drink from. He does not shrink from it, but he does not shrink from it in horror either. He studies it. He tries to understand how it is grown and how the growth of a new cancer can be prevented. So this example of a surgeon is so instructive. Any comments or questions about any of this?
Actually, this is a wonderful teaching, Shankaraji, because this is what happens in the previous thing. We shall make many mistakes, and the best we can hope for it is the overall intention. This helps us to, instead of bogged down with all our memories, we can go forward.
Yes, exactly. And you as a surgeon, no doubt, really relate to what was just said. You practiced as a surgeon for decades. All right.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
sure there were mistakes.
Of course, yes.
I'm sure there were mistakes. There just have to be. But your intentions were correct. You did not mean to make a mistake. You did not mean to do harm. Your vow, your oath was to do no harm. This is the physician's vow, creed. But the mistakes are made. There's some gallows humor among doctors about whether they have reached maturity or not. How many people have you buried? You have to admire their courage in asking themselves this kind of question, facing the fact that there are mistakes. Thank you, Bella. And I treasure you for the surgeon that you are and for the doctor that you are. And I'm sure that others in the congregation feel exactly the same way.
Thank you, sir.
What a life you led. What a life of extreme hard work and helping people recover their lives. Anything else from anyone? All right. We do not sin through pure weakness or
Wickedness.
wickedness. I'm sorry. We do not sin through pure wickedness. Or, I tell you what, my vision is poor, poorer than usual today. I don't know why. Would you go ahead and read Balakrishna? Just read from We Do Not Sin.
Okay, sure. We do not sin through pure wickedness or sheer moral idiocy. Our sins have a meaning and a purpose which we shall have to understand before we can hope to stop repeating them.
This is the purpose, one of the primary purposes of meditation, concentration and meditation, so that we can understand what we do and why. We come to understand the contents of our waking awareness. We become aware of the contents and the motives that are provided by our active subconscious. And after many, many years of meditation, practice of meditation and concentration, we come to our real samskaras are, which are in our latent subconscious or unconscious mind. And we see, oh my God, some of these things are immediately apparent to us, the things that caused us pain in this lifetime. But they are not by any means the whole of our vasanas. Vasanas are a group of samskaras that together produce a repetitive behavior. So if we have a repetitive behavior for overeating, which I did, we see after a time what it is that is prompting this. And it isn't just something that happened in this lifetime. I never was so poor that I didn't have enough to eat in this lifetime. I mean, our family was sometimes in a bit of want and lived through periods where there were actual restrictions on what you could buy, during the World War II and the Korean War. So there was some scarcity, but certainly not want. No, the overeating and the self-medication through food came through a whole other series of samskaras that combined to this vasana of overeating. So this is what he says. We shall have to understand. Otherwise, if we don't ever understand, we risk repeating them. Just trying to restrain your bad habits through volition. I'm not going to do that anymore. Well, that will last for a while, but usually gives way to the vasana, gives way to what has been prompting that inauspicious habit to start with. Any comments or questions other than my own? Okay, please read on.
They are, in fact, symptoms of the pain of alienation from our real nature, the Atman. They are attempts to reunite ourselves with that nature. Such attempts are hopelessly misdirected because they take as their starting point the ignorance of egoism. They are bound to lead us farther and farther away from reality. We are all dimly aware of the presence of the Atman within us.
Dimly. We are all dimly aware of it.
Yeah.
Why does the Swami say this? We couldn't live. We couldn't sustain ourselves in any way if we weren't dimly aware of this, because it is what provides the motive power. It is the electricity that lights up this bulb. If we think of ourselves as a light bulb, it is the energy of the Atman, the Saguna Atman, is what it is that is providing the energy that lights up that bulb. Now we get it confused, as he says, through ignorance. But we are all dimly aware somehow of the presence of the Atman within us. Okay, Bala.
We are all looking for the peace and freedom and security of perfect union with the Atman. We all long desperately to be happy. But ignorance misdirects us. It assures us that the Atman cannot really be within us, that we are nothing but individuals, separate egos. And
Yes, we think we're generating the energy. We think that the food that we eat and the exercise that we do are what provides the energy no, they're just giving form to that energy that is within us. They are sheaths that are outward, and they are the sheaths that we sheaths, the food body, the energy body, that we drop and leave behind when that which contains the energy of the Atman does not drop. It just goes on. The subtle body goes on. And into what status, whether it's reborn, takes a new garment, as Krishna says, or goes on the path of the saints and finishes its unfoldment in that context. But when he says we're all desperately seeking happiness, and so we have this dim awareness of this being, this energy, this God within us. We reject it in our ignorance. Anything else from anyone about that? Because this is such a key point of how it is that we misdirect ourselves. Okay, please read on.
And so we start to search for this dimly conceived eternal happiness amidst the finite and transient phenomena of the external world. Like the fabled musk deer, we search all over the earth for the haunting fragrance, which is really exuded from ourselves.
Now, this maybe most of you don't know this story of the musk deer. It was one of the Swami's favorite stories, favorite metaphors. The musk deer, there's these fables of the musk deer. The musk deer goes searching here and there and everywhere for the sense of this lovely fragrance that it finds in the world. Where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? Finally, the musk deer dies, and in doing so, curls up and suddenly discovers the scent is coming from its own navel. In curling up in death, it says, oh, it's coming from my own navel. It was right here all the while. This is the musk deer that the Swami's talking about. So please read that again with that now in mind for those people who didn't know it.
Like a fabled musk deer, we search all over the earth, hunting fragrance which is really exuded from ourselves. We stumble, we hurt ourselves, we endure endless hardships, but we never look in the right place.
We lost you.
No, okay.
Oh, you stopped. Okay.
Yes. The tyrant who enslaves millions of people, the miser who hoards 1,000 times as much money as he could ever need, the traitor who sells his dearest friend, the murderer, the thief, the liar, and the addict. All these, in the last analysis, simply want to be safe and happy and at peace.
Please read that again from the very beginning of that sentence.
The tyrant who enslaves millions of people, the miser who hoards 1,000 times as much money as he could ever need, the traitor who sells his dearest friend, the murderer, the thief, the liar, and the addict. All these, in the last analysis, simply want to be safe, happy, and at peace.
So what do we do? This is the selflessness. Instead of judging those people, instead of judging any of these, even though we may be suffering from tyranny, even though we may be suffering from the oligarchs who are hoarding 93% of the wealth of this nation, so that 7% of the people, the rest of the people have 7% of the wealth, and 2% have 93%. What do we do? Do we judge them? Do we condemn them? No, we say, may they understand. May they come to, we must be Marley to this Scrooge. We must say, no, you have no idea the length and weight of chain that you are bearing. Let me pray that you will have experiences that will free you from this. And so we pray for those. And of course, it is very difficult to maintain that frame of mind. Swami Vivekananda says if you can do it for even 5 minutes, it will transform you. If you can be that selfless, that truly selfless, and pray for any of these that the Swami just listed for even 5 minutes, then you will be transformed. Any comments or questions? Because this is very, very, very key. As long as we remain judgmental of what seems to be outside of us, it is an insuperable obstacle to our achieving union with what it is that we're seeking.
This reminds me what Vivekananda did with the Rockefeller. It is because of his teaching, and that today we have this beautiful Rockefeller Research Foundation.
Yes. Does everyone know that story? Tell that story, Balakrishna, about Swami Vivekananda and John D. Rockefeller. Who would be known these days? He would be nearly a trillionaire in the equivalent terms of money. You talk about having more money than he could ever need. So tell the story as you remember it, Balakrishna.
Well,
please.
as you said, because this is the teachings of Vivekananda that touched, actually he didn't even want to give, and after he gave some money, he comes and Swamiji was reading something. He did not pay attention to Rockefeller at all. And then Rockefeller throws us, this is what I did. That, with he still has that egotistic ideas in his mind. So that's why he throws this one, this is what I did. And
Okay, I'm going to tell the full story.
Okay.
Bala. Here's the full story. Rockefeller didn't personally know anything about Vivekananda, but he was dying. He had all this money, and of course, he had the best medical care that he could possibly get with all his money. But the best doctors that he could find said, it looks to us like you have a maximum of a little more than 2 months to live. So, of course, Rockefeller was desperate. And he remembered that some of his wealthy friends had known a man named Vivekananda. So where's this Vivekananda? They had really thought highly of this Vivekananda. And so where's this Vivekananda? He's in Chicago. Rockefeller goes to Chicago and he goes to Swamiji's office. The Hale family had provided Swamiji with an office in an office building there. And so Rockefeller goes to him and he says, I hear that you know things. What do you have to tell me? And Swamiji simply looked at him and said, find a way to give away your money. Find a way to give away your wealth. And Rockefeller thought, well, all right. So he went back and with his advisors and his lawyers, within just a very short time, I forget how long, 2 weeks, a month, something like this, he had formed what we now know as the Rockefeller Foundation as a way to give away his wealth to deserving causes. And he came back with these founding documents and he threw them down on Vivekananda's desk and said, you should thank me. And Vivekananda very calmly looked, he was, he had eidetic imagery and so was a speed reader. He could just look at a page and know everything that was there. He just looked at the documents page by page. And then he handed them back to Rockefeller and said, no, you should thank me. That's all. This is all that happened that has been related to us. And this is authoritatively told. Rockefeller lived for many years after that, and happily, because he saw his money. Of course, he didn't give away all his money. He kept enough for himself and for his family and so on. They inherited lots of money. But anyway, they became successful. Many of them became successful people. But the Rockefeller Foundation continues today to be a source of great assistance to worthy causes. And it is a direct result of Swami Vivekananda's conversation with John D. Rockefeller. Here's another example of Vivekananda's instructing people to use their wealth in a positive way. When Swami Vivekananda was in South Pasadena and Pasadena in late 1899 and 1900. He came to know of a family named Throop, Throop, Throop. They're still there. They still have successful businesses. They were running something called, I believe it was called the Throop Institute of Science or the Throop Scientific Institute. They were just in a building across the street from where Swamiji was speaking at the Green Hotel in Pasadena. So, of course, he was immediately fascinated by this. Swamiji loved science. And so he went to see them. And he said, "Oh, this is wonderful. This is wonderful what you're doing. You should expand it. You should, devote your wealth to expanding this." Because what they were doing, they weren't themselves scientists. They were supporting people who were doing good science. And so the Swami told him, continue this, expand it. The California Institute of Technology, which is one of the great research and premier learning institutions for science, the California Institute of Technology, is a direct result of Swamiji's conversation with the Throop family. They gathered their friends, and together they purchased the property and endowed what became the California Institute of Technology, which supported people like Dr. Richard Feynman, Nobel laureate, a quantum physicist. California Institute of Technology is the support system for JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, which is one of the great instruments of NASA that controls so many. Once things are launched, one of the places in the United States to which the control of these missions that are launched are turned over to JPL. I know, I was privileged to visit there. My son is friends with a fellow who's one of their mission controllers. And so I was able to go into the control rooms and see the data coming in from all of these missions out there in space. It's astounding. All a result of Swami Vivekananda's conversations with these wealthy people. And so you talk about purity of intention, purity of heart, and its power.
This is same thing he also advised to Tatas. Actually, that is, when he was traveling in the ship, he met the Tatas and he suggested you should do something for the education in India. Now,
Tata,
yes,
T-A-T-A, Tata, he's speaking the
Tatas,
Tata family,
yes.
one of the wealthiest families in India, Tata Industries.
And that's how the Indian Institute of Technology was started in Bangalore.
Mm-hmm.
The Tatas asked Vivekananda to become the chairman of the institute, but of course he did not take the job. And the reason I know about this is, Swami Bodhananda, who used to come to our center, and one of his closest devotees is leading one of the branches in that institute now.
Wonderful. Well, here's another.
I think it's the Indian Institute of Science. That's the one in Bangalore.
Say it again,
That's
Gaurav.
the one originally started by.
Yes, started by Tata, and he
Yes.
was by Swami Vivekananda. Indian Institute of Science. So for like graduate studies, that is even more premium than IITs.
Wonderful. Well, here's another example of the Tata's generosity. When I was in Calcutta in 1999, I was shown around to many of the things that the Ramakrishna Mission is doing as work with the poor and disadvantaged. And I mean very poor, people who just have nothing. They're working in those parts of Calcutta where people are, and so They have in one of these poorest parts of Calcutta in 1999 they had, and it's probably still there. I don't know that, but there's no reason for it to stop. Anyway, this was it was to train machinists, but it was not to train boys to be machinists. It was to train girls to be machinists who had that capability, who had that tendency, that leaning. And this was in our part of town where most of these girls were born to the families of prostitutes. And that would have been their future if it were not for this place. We visited that training shop. Beautiful equipment, all these things to train
Yes.
girls.
Is it run by the Sarada mission, brother?
No, it's not run by at least when I was there, it was not run by the Sarada Math. It was run by the Ramakrishna mission. It was Ramakrishna Order Swamis who took us there.
Okay.
So it may have been turned over since then to the Sarada Math. That may be true, Gaurav. But at the time, and these girls, they were training as machinists on these beautiful equipment with very highly qualified instructors. And these girls were all guaranteed employment in the Tata Industries plants, manufacturing plants, when they graduated that program. So it isn't just they were given some training and then let loose to figure out what to do with it. No, sir. They were well paid. It wasn't some way to create people who would take substandard compensation. No, they were well paid. And so they were able to pull their own families up out of poverty because of these girls doing this. It was the stories we were told. You literally brought us to tears. Those of us, there were a group of 5 of us, were being toured around to see these things. It was so. These are the direct results, as Balaji said. It was on the ship on his first trip to the United States or second, I don't remember which, that he met a member of the Tata family and told them what they should do. And so this family has now, they've given untold millions to the Ramakrishna mission and Math for this kind of work. It's very inspiring. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Gaurav.
Maybe a lot of people in India, like even though if they are not officially sort of connected to Ramakrishna mission, they consider Swami Vivekananda as their sort of spiritual father. They won't use that word, but you can sort of.
Rajiv, are you communicating with us over a phone? That's better. Now, before you were breaking up terribly. Now we can hear you.
So what I'm saying is that at least in India, although many people, even if they are not related directly to the Ramakrishna mission, they still consider Swami Vivekananda in a sense as their spiritual father. Like they won't use this term spiritual father, but you can sort of sense the way they take inspiration from there. And, you'll have posters and.
Yes, you go into their homes and you see these posters, yes. Thank you, Rajiv. It's really true. Vivekananda became a father of a lot in India and elsewhere because of his tremendous personality. Anything else from anyone? Okay, it's 1:00. What a perfect note to end on. What the Swami was saying. we seek security and accumulation of possessions by violence or fraud or so on. We and certainly these men like Rockefeller, they stepped on the lives of many to gain what they gained. I don't know about the Tatas or the Throops. So we'll leave it at that. And Balaji, because my vision is becoming so compromised, it's probably best that I not try to stumble through these readings. Next week, if you're here for the Saturday class, perhaps you could just go ahead and continue reading from where we left off.
Okay,
If I can make one suggestion about your reading, read just a little more slowly. Just
Okay.
a little more slowly. You're a good reader, but just a little more slowly would help us follow, I think.
Okay, sure, sir.
All right. Any final thought from anyone? Well, this has been a delight, as always. The Saturday class is one of our best attended classes. It is our best attended class. So how sweet to see you. Oh, dearly beloved Lord, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om, Amen. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto us. Peace and beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we go forward and be always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Tomorrow morning, we'll talk about what is it we're trying to quiet, using Patanjali's term, though we're talking about Jnana Yoga. What is it that we're trying to quiet in the mind? And the Jnanis don't use the word quiet. They use the word ignore. What is it we're trying to ignore to achieve realization according to the Advaita path? So that's what we'll talk about. And we'll see why it is so very, very difficult to quiet or ignore the products, what is generated by this very active mind of ours. Any final thought from anyone? All right, dears. Until tomorrow morning, may you all be well and in bright spirits. Sayonara.